shortening. And then what I'm going to do is just keep kneading with this on my hands. And what that's going to do is just kind of make it a little bit smoother, a little bit more supple. As you can see, it gets nice, and you can get really thin with this stuff. Really nice, and it won't dry out as fast also when it has a little bit of shortening added to the mix. If you add too much shortening, or you repeatedly add shortening, what's going to happen is eventually all the water will evaporate out of your fondant, and all that'll be there to moisten it is the shortening. And eventually will start cracking. Even though it's soft, it'll start cracking and becoming brittle. So you want to use it with discretion. Don't use too much, just a small amount. You can see my hands are already starting to lose a lot of the shine from the shortening, and the fondant has swallowed up most of it. So this is nice stuff. This makes real easy color, really wonderful, supple material to work with, but at the same time, it has its own pros and cons. To make a rose out of this can be really quite simple. I think I'm going to go ahead and make myself just a little cone like I normally would. Here's my first petal, second, third, maybe fourth petal. I'll stop there for now, and we'll see where that goes. To make your cone is the same as you do with marzipan. We're going to make ourselves a cone, a little cone shape. I'm just going to go ahead and put that down on my paper here, and like I mentioned earlier, just kind of push it down and kind of stick it down. Small is better. Remember also, like I've seen a lot of you trying to make cones, sometimes they come out looking like a Tootsie Roll. If it looks like a Tootsie Roll, it's going to be real hard for you to cover that up with your first petal. So if you have it in the cone shape already, that's the shape you're going for ultimately, it's much easier to cover up with that first petal. And you'll be really happy you did. So let's make a couple petals here.
Same technique.
Same technique, except I think you're going to find this material is different. It feels different.
You need to make the petals thicker.
You know, believe it or not, you don't. You can leave a little thickness in the center of the petal, like I said before, because you need to have a little structural strength. But this is an extremely supple material. You can get it very, very thin on the edge, and it doesn't get raggedy on the edge. It gets very, very smooth on the edge. So if you want raggities, you're going to have to kind of create them. So as I spread this out, you'll notice that the edge is still rather smooth. I try to go for nice and thin on the edge because I know I can do it with this material. It's a little different. You'll also notice that the thickness in my center is still fairly thick, all the way up about 2/3 up the petal. And I do that because I want to retain that strength, so it'll hold up, it'll stand up on its own. If I didn't do that, as you know, gravity will cause it to succumb and it will just bend over. But the great thing about fondant, it doesn't stick together, it doesn't stick to itself unless you want it to. Okay? So you can dry fit this petal if you want. I could dry fit it and then pull it right off and it doesn't stick. You know, it's just really wonderful that way. Now, I'm going to set this down for a moment because I'm going to introduce you to a new material called gum glue. This is water mixed with a little bit of gum arabic. Gum arabic is basically a plant-based gum. I have it in this little container here. Very dry stuff. If I want to make a little bit of gum glue, all I have to do is take about a half a teaspoon of this stuff. So just, literally half a teaspoon. And I put it in a little bit of water. This is just clear water. Initially, it's going to turn to lumps. But as I work it, press the lumps up against the side here and stir and press them up against the side. It'll eventually completely dissolve. This is really effective stuff. If you want to glue two pieces of fondant together, once this stuff gets in between them, they will not come apart. It welds them together permanently. So, that said, when it comes time to put your petal on your cone, make sure when you put gum glue on there that you've got it exactly where you want it, because you've got about a 2 or 3 second grace period of moving it around a little bit while the glue is still liquid. But once it sets, it's set. So, I don't want the tops of my petals to stick together. I'm not going to put gum glue there. I'm only going to put gum glue here on the bottom. And all I've done is I put a little bit on my finger and I'm just moistening. Just moistening. I'm not looking to get it soaking wet or dripping wet. Just a little moisture, enough to make it stick. When sugar gets in contact with liquid, it instantly turns to liquid itself. So if you're planning on having it stick and you don't want the top half to stick to anything, don't put gum glue there. Just put gum glue in the place you want it to stick. I'm going to go ahead and stick this on here. Now be aware of that though. If you want it to stick, you have to put gum glue there or it won't stick at all. Other things about fondant. It also stretches to a certain degree. Unlike marzipan, if you try to stretch it, it just breaks. This stuff actually will stretch quite a bit. Now let's say I want a little gum glue somewhere. I want to put a little gum glue here so it'll stick in this particular area. I take a little toothpick, a little tiny tool to get it to stick where I want it to stick, but nowhere else. So when I come around with it, it's exactly as I want it to be. Right now it's not sticking anywhere where I didn't put gum glue. That's a good start. The petal is still open here, and I can decide if I want to close that or if I want to incorporate a new petal underneath it. It's up to me. I'm just going to put a little bit of gum glue there just to kind of get it to stick. Just remember, if you get a lot of gum glue on your fingers, it starts getting sticky. It's really, you got to kind of get that off of it. Maybe change your gloves from time to time. I'm going to close this up a little bit, leaving it flare open a little bit so that it has a chance to look pretty lifelike. Let's go ahead and put on some other petals. You're going to find that this stuff starts looking a lot like the real thing. It starts looking like a real rose and a little bit more lifelike than you can get with marzipan. Marzipan's a good start though. This isn't wasted time. The reason I give you marzipan first is because I want you to have a chance to work out the details first with a material that's not going to dry out on you and that doesn't ask you to work fast. This stuff is going to ask you to work faster, and you're going to have to already have some of those bugs worked out. So by giving you marzipan first, you've had a chance to do that. Working fast is not as much of a problem now as it was earlier in the class today, and you'll be able to work at the speed that the fondant asks you to now. Now, when we get to Monday, we're going to be working with gum paste, which dries about 3 times faster than this stuff. Makes you work even faster. So, again, we're going to start you walking first before you run. You know, but it's safer that way. That way you don't get into a mad panic or have materials falling apart on you and making life difficult. So, a few more petals. Now, I personally like using a spoon. That's why I show you the spoon first. One thing that we were back working at table number 5, and we were looking at other tools that could possibly be used. If you have one of those a bowl scraper, a plastic bowl scraper, they work well as well. They bend really nicely, and you can put nice broad pressure on your petals. I like this because it's very smooth, and it gives you a really nice, smooth, thin edge on the very edge of your petal. But if you want to use your bowl scraper, it works fine. So 3 petals here, so that they'll be about the right size to go all the way around.